everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Emma and Georgia, and today we are doing a Squid Game character tier list. If you want to watch our uncut reactions, the link to the Patreon is down below.
So today we are ranking the characters from Squid Game. We always have to do a disclaimer. If you disagree with our opinions, that's fine. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments, but don't hate on anyone else's because we're all different. We're basing this on how much we like the character overall and where they are in our favourites. Like, not necessarily who is the best character and who had the best arc, because that's all subjective really. We're just doing it based on our personal favourite characters. Like, someone could have been a really horrible person, but also a good character.
There's going to be a lot of controversial opinions in this, I feel like. We do differ a little bit, us two, just with character opinions, but I feel like with everyone watching and in the comments, there's going to be a lot of disagreements, I think. But also agreements.
Every character could be quite controversial in this show because, like, some people in the comments have said how they don't like Ali, which I thought was unimaginable, and yet some people do. We'll start off with the less main characters, and we have got this VIP down here. I mean, I can't really see the difference between the VIPs, so I guess this one is just a collective VIP. But they're going in the VIPs tier. Who would have guessed?
I skimmed over the titles on this tier list. I didn't see the VIPs at the bottom.
Didn't you? They were all as bad as each other. They were all horrific people. You know, a bunch of capitalists using other people's misfortunes for their own sick form of entertainment. Like, they gained pleasure out of watching these people fighting for their lives just because they got dealt a bad hand in life and they were in a sad situation. They say that this is an opportunity for them, but realistically they don't have much choice to participate in it. They're just sick, and VIPs may as well stand for vile ignorant pigs because that's what they are.
Shit, that's a good point. And you know what? I'm putting them in the same place. VIPs. I think we can all safely say they're all pigs. Like, all of them. Just rich people watching and paying and betting on desperate people in debt to compete in these games. So disgusting, I can't even put it into words. This was a whole grand scheme, like a holiday for them. Yeah. And it just puts a bad taste in your mouth when you know why they're there.
The front man. Now, I was very intrigued about his identity throughout the show. I thought they were a very cool character, like when they were all mysterious, and like we were always like, oh, he's quite a respectable man and we're keeping up with the rules and such. But then when they revealed that it was Jun-ho's brother and then he killed him, it bumped his character right down in my list of favourites, because I hate that he killed his own flesh and blood because he cares more about this game than his own brother and his own family. Like, we still don't know very much about him and why he got to this position in the first place, because we know he won in 2015. How did he end up becoming the front man? Like, he must not have felt as much guilt as 456 did in the end if he decided to come back and run this game. So, like, he is still mysterious, but for now, what I know about him, I don't like, so I'm putting him in tragic performance because he killed his own brother, for God's sake.
I totally agree. The whole mystery about his character was really good. I liked not knowing who he was, but I also really wanted to know more. He's a great character because, you know, there's so much mystery around him, but it was all great until the last few episodes where we were on the island and he killed his brother. And it just felt so unnecessary for me, like why he would do that. I know he was saying, oh, come with me, you'll live and all of that. And when he said no, he revealed his face and then he killed him.
Yeah, I don't get why. I want to know why he came back to the game, why he cares so much about it. Like, he's been through it, surely he would know how horrific it was, so why has he gone back to it?
We didn't get a lot of answers with his character. I'm gonna put him like you in tragic performance, because I like the mystery around him, but I don't like the way it ended with more questions than answers, and we still don't know his reason for shooting his brother, his reason for being the front man, and all his decisions.
If they do a season 2, I'd like to see more about him. Like, he's not one of my favourite characters at all, because I hate what he did and like the fact that he went back to that game and stuff, but I want to know how he got to that position, you know, and his reasoning behind everything. So I'd be interested to learn more about him in future seasons, because he's one of the only ones that actually can return. Now, ji-yeong, I'm going to be honest, before episode 6 I didn't really care about her, because she only got introduced in the tug of war game, and then she was in episode 5, and all we'd really see of her was her having a go at the guy that was praying to God. So I just didn't really have much feeling towards her. But then in episode 6, after we found out how tragic her backstory was, she had an abusive father who killed her mother, so she then killed him. Then she went to prison for it, and she came out to this game because she had to pay off her father's debts, I think, and she had nowhere else to go. Like, that's so heartbreaking. And then she sacrificed herself for sae-byeok, dying because she doesn't have anyone to go to or anywhere to go afterwards, whereas sae-byeok did. She's just so selfless, and that's such a lovely person. Like, you have to be such a great person in order to do that, and she didn't deserve the life she had. I'm going to put her in Put Up an Okay Fight, because she wasn't as well fleshed out as some of the other characters, and we didn't have enough time with her for her to be one of my favourites. But if this was like a ranking on likability, she would be way up there, because I love her after what she did.
It's a shame, because I would have liked to have seen her in the earlier challenges. I feel like I didn't even notice her in like Red Light, Green Light and stuff like that. It would have been cool to have her introduced more early. It was a bit of a, like, I don't know what word it is, but it was a bit awkward, her first introduction. But when we got to know her in the Marbles game, that's when we felt for her, and her backstory is very tragic. All of that for such a young woman to go through, and all she's ever known is captivity. She did put up an okay fight. If we had seen her earlier, just more about her, I think I would have put her higher.
Yeah.
It's the fact that, you know, we, like you said, we were introduced to her in like episode 6 really, but I do really like her character, and I just can't forget her smiling, like when sae-byeok is like turned around at the end of episode 6 and the guy puts the gun to her head. She's still smiling at the end. I can't get that image out of my mind.
212. I've learnt her number now. I'm not gonna lie, she did get on my nerves for the majority of the time she was alive, but like, when you really put it into perspective, and I feel like that's something that we kind of failed to do while we were reacting to it, like imagining ourselves in that situation, because when you're in a life or death situation, you kind of have to be persistent with everything when you're trying to survive, and that is what she did. Like, she was nothing if not persistent. She had her iconic moments as well, like in the toilet, and when she killed Doksu. She had her funny moments too, and to be honest, probably my favourite ending out of everyone. I love that she ended up keeping her word and killing Doksu. She's going to go and put up an okay fight below ji-yeong, I think, because she annoyed me.
I feel like we can have the same tier list, like we are at the moment.
Well, yeah, it's a good start so far. Normally we have very different opinions. And I feel like this tier kind of personifies her character, because she did put up an okay fight. She was fighting constantly.
Her character is very nutty. I would say she was a right fruitcake, as she said in a reaction. She was the most vocal out of all of the players there, and she really did fight for her survival. I liked her spirit, didn't like her racist remarks. I think she did whatever she could to save her own, and I loved the sort of minor storyline with her and Doksu. I think she did get the best ending in that sense, where she finally stuck true to her words and she could pay him back for betraying her. I'm going to put up an okay fight as well in that tier. I'm going to put her below the other one for now. I found her much more interesting, and I liked her sacrifice, and I think she's a very selfless person, and it's rare you find that in games like this.
Yeah. I feel like had 212 been in the Marvel games, there could have been some potential there to learn more about her life outside the game.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, her in that game.
Yeah, because she said she had a newborn baby in episode 1 as well, which is why I'm quite sad about her death in some ways. But yeah, I would have liked to learn more about her outside of the game, but you know, they only have a certain amount of time. And Deok-soo, such a satisfying ending for him. Like, we wanted him to die the whole time, and I didn't want him to just die in a game willy-nilly, because that's how everyone else died. He needed a good ending, and having her kill him after their whole rivalry the whole time was so epic. He is a good character, because I feel like a show like this needs a cutthroat villain. You know, in the games, like, they can't just have everyone be nicey nice. Like, a show needs a big villain like that. He was that perfectly. He provided some great scenes as well. Like, the riot scene stands out in my mind. He orchestrated that whole riot, which I hated him for, but the scene was amazing and, you know, so well directed and everything. He isn't one of my favourite characters, because I was rooting for other characters more, and I liked other characters more. He was just the bookshop villain that always needs to be there. So I'm going to put him in Put Up an OK Fight as well, because, you know, he was fighting the whole time, but he just wasn't one of my favourites. I was rooting more for the good guys in this show than the bad guys.
He was a very good villain in this show. I found him interesting from start to finish. He wasn't just your average bad guy. I feel like there was a lot to him. He got swayed by 456 when they were setting up their barricades. He did get in his head and made him realise you really can't trust anyone in this game. I feel like there's a lot to him as well. I think he was a really good villain, and he made everyone hate him. I feel like the majority did hate his actions. He never did anything nice. He always just thought about himself. I think he's an amazing character though, not my favourite. I think he was a really good villain. I'm gonna put him in the middle of Put Up an OK Fight. He was a very interesting character.
I feel like the cop was probably the one I was rooting for the most, because so spoiler, yeah, he's going in. I was rooting for you. I was rooting for him so much because he was the only one that had the potential to get these games shut down. Throughout his storyline, we got to see what goes on behind the scenes in the Squid Games, and how the workers don't have it too great either. Like, they're under very strict rules. They can't talk to each other. They have tiny rooms and stuff like that. Character-wise, I feel like he does such a good job of getting the info he needed, and he managed to escape without getting captured. Like, in this is such a well-oiled machine, and there's so many people there that could have caught him, so he did a really good job getting in and getting out safely for the most part. I'm just so sad for him that the only reason he went there was because he thought his brother was in danger, and then his brother was the one that ended up killing him. That's such a sad tale, and it's one of the biggest betrayals on the show, I think. Like, I can only imagine the pain that he felt knowing what kind of person his brother was, and that he would put the game before his flesh and blood, like in that moment where he had the gun pointed at him. Like, he went there to save his brother, and his brother chose a game over him. Yeah,
I think the tier I was rooting for you fits him perfectly. The biggest betrayal, I agree. The whole reason he was there in the first place. He could have been sat at home just thinking his brother was missing the entire time, but no, he did something about it, and he tracked him down to this. I was rooting for him the whole time, and the fact that he went this far undetected in the games is amazing. He did everything so right. I don't think anyone else could have done it as good as him.
Yeah, I agree.
He was, and that when he was on the island, just swam all the way.
I know.
Wherever it was, and he got so close. He got so close.
He was on the bloody phone, and there was no service.
Oh, it was going to be so perfect. He was going to shut it all down, but no. right at the last knock-ins. I was gutted.
I mean, we had to know that a show like this wouldn't have any happy endings.
A girl can dream.
Yeah. I also want to give a special shout out. My favourite scene of his was that scene with the VIP. I'm not gonna lie. That was so satisfying to see him have that gun held up to his forehead and saying, "Tell me everything you know." Oh.
Yeah, that VIP was so gross. 4, 5, 6, where to begin? Our main guy we've seen from the first scene to the very last. His story is tragic. His mum needed medical care. He was in severe debt. He wasn't a perfect person, but he had sympathy and he had a heart, and that's why he was in these games in the first place. He wanted to help his mum, wanted to help his daughter. He didn't want her to go. We were just rooting for him. And throughout the games, he was just so slick, and he managed to find ways to combat each of the tasks. Like in the honeycomb one, who'd have thought licking it would have made it like fall apart? And he was just so good, and he never really slipped up big time, apart from in Red Light Green Light when Ali saved his ass.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I think he practically got carried through the whole thing.
Well, he was carried literally by Ali in the first game.
Because when you think about it, Red Light Green Light, Sang-woo gave him the tip to hide behind people, and then Ali literally saved him. And then the honeycomb one is the only one he did by himself, I think. Because then Tug of War, you know, the old man and Sang-woo carried that one too. Marbles, the old man sacrificed himself for him. Like, he didn't actually win, the old man just said, "Take my marble." And then the glass game, Sang-woo pushed off the glass maker so that they all could survive, because otherwise they probably all would have died because it was taking too long. And then the last game, Sang-woo killed himself. So he kind of didn't like he didn't put in any.
When you put it like that, that's put some perspective on things. Okay, yeah, maybe he was carried. Say he was carried. I still like him though.
Yeah.
He's so charismatic. I loved how he looked out for number one so much. They were like two peas in a pod going through it, and his friendships with people were solid, and people did things for him. As you know, he was carried. Like, people liked him, and he is a likeable character with all his flaws and everything. He's a likeable character.
Yeah.
And I was rooting for him to win it, and he did. I'm saying he's an MVP. He's going at the top. I've liked him from start to end. He tries, and he does as best as he can, I think. And it was cute when he left that suitcase full of money to Sang-woo's mum to look after sae-byok's brother. That was really sweet. And he was sort of like a Father Christmas at the end, just giving goodwill to like people.
Yeah, I agree. He is an MVP. I'm putting him up there as well. I feel like I didn't express my love for him enough throughout the show because I was fairly confident that he would survive and like make it to the end. I do love how kind-hearted and there for everyone he was. Especially number one. Number one was unlikely to be much help to them at all in any of the games, but he still included him and he paired up with him because he cared so much about him and didn't want him to die. That was probably his biggest weakness in the game though, because it's because of his warmth that he ended up being so depressed after the games, I think. Like, he had so much guilt weighing on his shoulders, and I don't think everyone would have felt like that. Like, I think people would have gotten survivor's guilt for sure, but like, for example, if Doksu won, I don't think he would have sunk into a full-on deep depression like 456 did. And then like seeing his mum die as well, that was heartbreaking as well. He just lost everything all in the span of a week. He made friends, he lost friends, he lost his mother, and then he had all this money, but money doesn't make happiness. Like, he's just witnessed mass murder. Money doesn't make up for that. And I just loved his whole personality, and like, he was so funny, he was so charismatic, he was so kind, as I said. And I liked his arc across the season. Like, in the first episode he started off as this coward running away from loan sharks, and then in the last episode he's ended up being brave enough to go and try and put a stop to the games that have now ruined his life. Ali, he may not necessarily be the best, most fleshed out, well-written character on the show, but how can you not just love him? Like, he was so kind, and he was too kind and trusting for this game, and that ended up being his downfall. But he was so selfless, like saving 456 in game number 1 when they were complete strangers. They'd all just been thrust in this situation and he saved him. That's such a compassionate human thing to do that I don't think a lot of people would have. And like, he saved them when they were attacked in the riot. They were being attacked and he came along with his massive pipe and he was swinging it around. Like, he's just the purest soul and he doesn't have a bad bone in his body. And that is why he died in the games. It was because he was nice. It was because he trusted people and he got along with people so well. He's going in MVP.
Oh.
He didn't have the best arc. He didn't have the best storylines necessarily, but I've got such a soft spot for him. He was so kind, so lovely, and his death was so heartbreaking. He was just a good person, right down to his shoes. Like, he was lovely. And the way he was so appreciative of any time anyone was kind to him back was adorable.
Oh, his kind-heartedness was so strange for a situation like this where everyone's fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
It's not something you see. I love Ali so much. And I don't know if you could tell from our reactions in episode 6, we were a bit heartbroken when he died. Just a little bit. He's so pure, and he's too pure for this world, let alone this game. When I think of Ali, I think of the start where every time Sang-woo would like lend him his phone to call someone, lend him a bit of money, he would always say, "Thank you, sir, thank you, thank you."
Yeah.
And he would be so thankful, and he would just call him sir. He'd be so respectful to all of them. And that kind of polite kind-heartedness, it's hard to see nowadays. And in the darkest of times, someone still so pure and kind like that is amazing. It's a bright light in all of this darkness.
Yeah, for real.
With the small scenes we had of him, I liked everyone, and I was crushed when he died. He's in an MVP. 456 and Ali are tied for my favourite character. I can't decide between them because I love them both for different reasons.
You gotta put one of them above the other.
I've put 456 above him. I know. Ali is a close second.
sae-byeok. She was very mysterious the whole time. Like, she kept her cards very close to her chest. I hate the way she died. Like, Sang-woo killing her. Yeah, I'm mad at Sang-woo for that, yeah, obviously. But I'm mad in the first place that she got stabbed by a fucking shard of glass. The fact that she died in such a cowardly way with being stabbed by a shard of glass, she deserved better than that. She didn't even die in a game, she died after a game. That's so ridiculous for the powerful character that she was. I love that she eventually did open up to someone. She opened up to Ji-yeong in her final moments. And after learning her whole story about her family and being a North Korean defector, I was rooting for her even more than I already was. And I just wish that she got to participate in that final game because she deserved it. She was such a badass and she wouldn't put up with anyone's shit. Like, she would always, even after Doksu beat her up when they arrived at the game straight away, she still would backchat him all the time because she just didn't care. And like, she was smart too because she smuggled in a knife and she went through the vents and stuff. Like, she had her own sneaky crafty ways. I thought she was such a good character. She wasn't quite an MVP for me though, so she's going at the top of I was rooting for you because I really was rooting for her and I hate her death. Like, that's probably the one I hate the most in the whole show.
I'm about to go on a massive rant about her death. I hated it. Her death was such an absolute betrayal to her character. She is such a strong young woman, and throughout the show, like you said, she's had a hard life with her mum, her brother in a children's home. You know, she's looked out for herself for a long time, and she did throughout this game. She's very independent, she's strong and powerful, and she sticks up for herself and doesn't let anyone walk all over her, and I think that's amazing, and I love that. Throughout the games, she has never faltered. She has just kept that strength when other people haven't. It's just so refreshing, and I loved watching her journey. Her death, on the other hand, I think it would have been so much more heroic and and much better if it was a game that killed her. But instead, a fallen shard of glass from that stupid game just, it hit her in the stomach, and it was a horrible pain. She was suffering right up into her death. It must have been so painful. And for Sang-woo to go and stab her, slit her neck, the hatred I had for him in that moment was so high. I hate him for that. She deserves so much better. She doesn't trust people. She keeps her heart close to her chest, and for her to let herself go and for him to prey on her and stab her, it just betrays her character and her strength, and I hate that. And that was the ending.
In a way, she was right to have kept her cards close to her chest because someone on her side betrayed her.
And that is the reason she's an MVP for me. These top 3 characters are my absolute favourites.
Number 1. Oh, what a journey we had with number 1.
This was an emotional roller coaster, to say the least.
Yeah. That plot twist did change my ranking of him dramatically, I'm not gonna lie. Not too dramatically, because I'm still going by his character overall. But before the plot twist was revealed, he would have been first or second, probably, because I just loved him so much. I loved his sweet nature. He was hilarious, the way he was just smiling through all the games. Like, he was just portrayed as this kind old man who wanted to live a little before he died. Finding out that he was the sick mastermind behind everything was an epic plot twist, don't get me wrong. It added another dimension to his character, which is always good as well. But he's such a piece of trash. Like, you can't hate his character for that because it makes him very interesting, like learning who he really is and stuff behind all his facade. But what a trash human being. Like, starting a game of mass murder because he was bored. Gaining entertainment out of watching people squirm and lose their lives in order to get a fortune that meant nothing to him. Like, what kind of person do you have to be to enjoy that? It's sick. Character-wise, I'm still gonna put him in I Was Rooting For You, because when he was alive, I was rooting for him. When he was alive, I mean when he was the fake him, I was rooting for him all the way, and he was like my favourite. But after the reveal, he's moved down a bit because he is more layered now, and it was a very interesting twist, but he's no longer one of my favourite characters because he was such an evil person. And I just can't shake that he deceived everyone. His betrayal arguably was the biggest one in the whole show. Like, there was a lot of betrayal in there, but that one is the one that makes me most angry because I just had no idea that that would happen. And the fact that he was the most evil person of all is just so shocking to me.
I don't exactly know my opinion of him conclusively. Yeah, before the betrayal, I loved him. Loved his smile. He reminded me of Ali. He's just an older version, just wise. He had all these tricks up his sleeve, like in Tug of War. He had this advice to lean back and everything. He was really great, and he was just so wholesome. Like, you just wanted to just protect him. He had that face of innocent. Oh boy, was he not innocent. It was all a facade the whole time. Boy, did it hurt. Oh my goodness, when we found out he was the mastermind behind all of this, I was gobsmacked to say the least. He was bored. That was the answer he gave, pretty much. He was rich. Him and his rich friends were bored, so we wanted to have some fun.
How does your brain go there? How do you think of that?
I don't know. He is still a great character because you love him and then you hate him. and he has that ability to like mess with your emotions and tear them all up and not know where you stand with him. I'm gonna say I was rooting for you, because I was rooting for you. And I'm gonna put him above the cop. I know that's gonna be a bit controversial because of what he's done, but I still like him as a character, because I just think how one man is capable of such madness. It's mind-boggling, and that's why I like him.
Woo.
Last but not least, I don't want to say I knew from the start, but I knew early on he wasn't who he said he was. I got this feeling about Sang-woo, which he always had this look on his face where he looked guilty. I never wanted to trust him, and I was right. He did change at the end. Oh my goodness, like, where do you begin with this? In the Glass Game, he just pushed that man just without any sense, any sort of remorse. But when I put myself in his shoes, that's when things start changing, because you do what you need to do to survive. And I get that. When he killed sae-byeok, I was pissed. And I still am. And that anger still hasn't left me. As a character, he's very complicated. At the last game with him and 456 in the Squid Game, we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because he is a very fight for survival. 456 has his heart close to him. He does feel empathy, and he doesn't want to, and that's his friend. And after all of the stabs, punches, everything, he finally had a consensus at the end. And I don't know why he did it, but he killed himself for 456. And I still don't quite understand why he would do that.
Oh, I will give you my take on that.
I'm still a bit, and I like to hear what you think of this, because I'm still a bit confused about it. He did it to everyone else. He sacrificed other people, and he was willing to sacrifice 456 at the start of the last game. He was stabbing him, he was punching him, but when he was down, that's when he surrendered himself. It's really hard to put him on the tier list because I have such mixed feelings about him. I'm gonna put him at the top of Put Up an Okay Fight. I personally have more negative than positive feelings about him because of how he has acted and how he's deceived people. But I also know he did what he needed to do to survive. So it's a very hard one to judge.
See, I think in terms of this show, hindsight is a very wonderful thing, and I also had the added pleasure of editing it too, so like I basically got to watch it twice and like gain my thoughts on things. And I think when we're reacting to it, we kind of think of it as the TV show that it is for us, but when you put it into perspective and you think about it from their shoes, everything makes sense. And now I think I understand Sang-woo and his motivations behind everything now. I may be completely wrong on some stuff, but this is my take on it and like how I view him now. After all the horrible things he did, I was still trying to find ways to defend him, but I couldn't quite find my words because I didn't really know why I was defending him, but now I've found it. Because in a game of life or death, Sang-woo is probably the most realistic character. Like, if we're thinking about the general population here, most people are going to choose life. And he did that. We called him selfish a lot, but when you're in a life or death game, you have to be selfish because you're not going to care about these strangers that you've known for 5 days. You're going to want to survive. You're going to put yourself first. Our love for these characters kind of blindsides us on that because we watched these characters enter this game together. We watched their arcs throughout the show, and then seeing one of them kill the other, it makes us instantly hate the killer. But if you're in that situation, you haven't known these people long at all, and any human being would put themselves first. I feel like I always understood why he betrayed Ali, because they were pit against each other and forced in that situation, and there was no way they could win at a team there, so he had to betray Ali. As heartbreaking as it was, he had to use his wits to do that, and so like I don't blame him for that, but I was really struggling to understand, and what made me hate him so much was when he killed sae-byeok and also when he pushed the glassmaker off. But now I understand that the glassmaker, they only had 10 seconds left of the game, and the glassmaker might not have moved, so he had to push him off in order for them all to survive. Otherwise they literally all would have died in that game if the glassmaker didn't move. There might not have been enough time, so I can see his reasoning for that now. And also the killing sae-byeok, that was the final straw for me in the reactions, because I was so annoyed that he killed off such a great character. But it was because he was worried that they were going to end the game in order to get her treatment when she probably would have died anyway. Because like we saw in the final episode how 456 tried to end the game, he thought that they would do that when they found out that sae-byeok was hurt. So he had to kill her in order to keep the game going, because I think his main motivation in this whole thing was the money. I think that's always been his priority even before his life, because we saw in episode 2 that he tried to kill himself when the game ended, and then he killed himself at the end of the game. So I think that his main goal was to end up winning that money so that A, he wouldn't be a disappointment to his mum, and B, so that she wouldn't lose her shop and her house, because he used that as collateral in his like dirty dealings and stuff. So he couldn't risk the game ending, which is why he voted yes in episode 2, and which is why he ended up killing himself, because 456 wanted to end the game so that they both could get out of there alive. But I think he did the thing that 456 couldn't do, and he killed himself because he needed his mum to get that money, otherwise her life would have gone to shit. He was also an MVP in the games. He might have killed a few people along the way, but I don't think 456 would have made it to the end had it not been for Sang-woo. The glass incident is what sparked their argument and what made them turn on each other, but if he hadn't have done that, they would have all died. We also saw outside of the games that he was quite kind, like he gave money to Ali, and he gave the hint in episode 1 to 456 when the games first started and they were all new to this situation, and he genuinely loved his mum. So I think the game just made him do things that most humans don't want to admit that we would do in this situation, but we all would do it. We all would choose ourselves over other people. So
I find it so hard because I want to hate him, and I'm sure a lot of people want to hate him, but you can't fault him for wanting to support his mum. And you know, they're all in debt, they all need the money, they all have family issues, whatever, they've all got their own personal lives, and I can't really fault him for that. It's just like, while you're watching it for the first time, that instant betrayal you feel, it clouds over everything else. And you don't think to put yourself in their shoes.
It's because we love these characters and we're watching it as a TV show. We instantly hate whoever kills them, because we're like, how could you do that to him? But if you're in a game where your choice is life or death, you have to choose life. You have to stick to yourself. And we had to go at him for not being a team player, but like, you can't be a team player if there's only going to be one winner. So he had to look out for himself, and he was put in some situations where he had to do it. And like, for example, if 456 in the glass game was in his position and Sang-woo was last, they all probably would have died, because I don't think 456 would have had the guts to push that guy off. But he did, and he enabled 456 to win and survive. So that is why Sang-woo is my favourite character in the whole show, and he's going in MVP.
Oh my gosh, I was not expecting that.
He's just so complex, and like, you don't catch it first watch if you're a dumbass like us. If you don't read between the lines and like really empathise with the situation. But when you think about how complex it is, how he had the guts to do everything that those people wouldn't do, he had to do the unthinkable. And I think he is the most relatable character, because I think most humans would act like he did in that situation.
It's a really sad TV show, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you think about it, really sad. But such lovable characters as well.
Yeah, so that is our final tier list for Squid Game. Leave your opinions in the comments, they're always welcome. We love reading the comments and seeing people's opinions on things. Who would be your MVPs of season 1 of Squid Game? If you had to choose your top 3, because I think we've both got 3 characters in our top tier, who are your top 3 characters. If you want to watch our uncut reactions to season 1 of Squid Game, then the link to the Patreon page will be in the description below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye!